Thinking about St. Patrick's Day? How about making this adorable fused glass leprechaun bobblehead? You can see his head is kind of wiggly, and he's not actually too hard to make. You can get the pattern on my Etsy site, pjsglasscreations.etsy.com, and then you can follow the tutorial here for free. Let's get started. To start the gnome, you'll need the pattern. You can find the pattern on my Etsy site, pjsglasscreations.etsy.com. There's also a link in the description of this video. There are 2 parts to the pattern. There's also some additional pieces that you'll need and a few tips. One is when you're cutting out the hands, I start with a rectangle that's a 1/2 inch by 3/4 of an inch, and I just grind off the corners, and I have a tiny grinder bit that I use just to make that little indentation, so it's kind of the separation between his thumb and his fingers. And the other thing is I use 2 1/2-inch pieces of, this is actually an almond striker, and I offset them and put it in as a full fuse so I get like this little rounded nose. So those are my tips. You'll also need a couple of little eyeballs. I have these little dots that I made out of little scraps. So those are my tips. And before we start, I am going to use some enamel. Oh, my enamel's really thick right now. I'm giving it a good stir. I got this particular enamel at AAE Glass. It's a thin fire, sorry, what is it called? Easy Fire enamel. And it's like a metallic gold. You can use whatever you have. You can use scraps of glass, but all I'm doing is making a little buckle on his hat. And the top part's not, the bottom part's not going to show. So I just need to do the top part. This bottom part's going to be covered up by his hat brim. And the reason I'm doing this first is I want it to go into, I put it in a little toaster oven so that it can dry. All right, we're gonna let that be. I'm gonna put this in the toaster oven and then we will start assembling. The hat brim has come out of the oven, and so now I don't have to worry about smudging my enamel. This will turn out kind of shiny after it fires. And we're going to start assembling our gnome. And first thing we need to do is put the hat band, or the hat trim, I guess I should say, on the top of our gnome. So this actually sits up a little bit from that bottom edge. So just whenever you can get it to fit so the edges fit well. And I'm using a Gorilla super glue. Don't use gel if you're using super glue, but you can use other glues too, whatever works for you. And actually his face is going to go here, but it actually won't be attached until we fire. Next, we're going to put the hat brim on. And this is why we didn't have to paint that bottom line. So that would be about there. The beard will go here. And I'm going to just use a scrap of glass just to hold it so it's level till it dries. And you can see that not much of his face shows, just a tiny portion. And a lot of gnomes, you see, their faces don't show at all. They just have a great big old nose. But this one we're going to see his little beady eyes. So that'll be the next thing. And if you have some tweezers, it really is a lot easier to put these on. So there's his eyes. Next is his mustache. You can see this goes together really quickly. It just takes forever to cut all the parts. Make sure this is centered. I also don't like to see the top of that beard part. You can see it in the middle, but the nose will cover that. So I kind of make sure that that's covered. Next is his nose. And that will sit up a little high. It won't be quite centered from top to bottom of his mustache. It'll be a little high, like that. And he is holding a shamrock. So we're gonna put the shamrock on his beard, actually. And you might want to try dry fitting all of these before you actually put them on for real. I've already done that. For the stem. And I have a little gap here. We're not going to worry about that because in a second, I forgot to get it, but actually I'll be right back and I'll get that part. Okay, I'm back. What I needed to get was I have a little dot and I'm going to put this dot right in the middle of that shamrock. It hides all the little imperfections in the middle, just adds a little detail. Next is the hands. So we have, if you're looking at your hand, your thumb is always up when you're holding things. So we're gonna put his thumbs up. And this is about half on the shamrock and half off. And so when it fuses, the end here should fold over a bit. Don't leave it too far off that it falls off in the kiln though. So that's it for the assembly. Move this one now, I think. Oh, maybe not. That's it for the assembly of his head. Move it out of the way. Next is the body, and that's really super simple. All you're gonna do is glue his shoes on. Make sure that his shoes are lined up with the bottom. And now I'm going to add some details. I have this pen. It is a Uniball Signo UM153 pen. I just learned about this recently and it's awesome. Not all of the colors work well, not all the colors fire well, but white works really well. And so we're gonna use this pen and add some details, such as shoelaces. So I'm gonna make a little bow at the top, little tails to the bow, and then some X's to indicate laces for his shoes. Same with this one. And while I have this white marker out, I'm also going to add some details to his fingers. And basically, I'm just putting lines for the fingers. He's a gnome. He's only going to have 4 fingers. I don't know how many fingers a gnome really has, but it looks good to me. So his head is done, and you can see his hat is not attached. This piece sits up too high to attach to that piece there. So all I'm going to do is make sure that when I put it in the kiln, that I put it like that. And then as it melts, this piece here will melt down and it'll touch his forehead and keep that part all together. This part is going to be separate in the kiln, so I'm not worried about that. The last thing I'm going to do, and I will have to put it back in the oven for just a second, is I want to add some little gold buttons. And you can dress them up as much or as little as you want. I just find that just little details add so much. All right, I will put this bottom piece in the oven to dry. And he's ready for the kiln. I'm gonna put him in as a tack fuse. On my other bobbleheads, I usually put them together first before putting them in the kiln. But what I found is that when I did this before in making my sample, this mustache was all the way up here. And what happened when it fused is that it all slid down and over. And I don't know if it was because my kiln was not level. I have since leveled it better. Or if it's just because we had so many layers and a wire underneath that everything was just unstable. So what I'm going to do on these, or on this one, is put it in the kiln like this for a tack fuse. Then after it comes out of the tack, we will add the wires, we'll put it back in, and then finally, we'll do the final assembly. So this will go in as a tack fuse. The schedule will be right after this in the video, and then I will show you how to add the wires after this. My gnome is out of the kiln. His head and his body are separate. When I fired it with the wires in before, I don't know if you remember me saying, it really shifted, and I don't know if my kiln was off. It wasn't quite level, so I leveled it up this time, but it really was not acceptable to me to be like that. So you can tell this one's much better. It maybe slipped a little bit right here, but much, much better. And we're going to wire this up. And the way to do that is I have some 17 gauge wire. I am going to cut two pieces. One piece is going to be 2 inches and one piece is going to be 3 inches. Make sure it's a high fire wire too, by the way. 17 gauge high fire wire. There's my 3 inch and my 2 inch. I'm going to start with the 2 inch. And I am putting some super glue down here, as well as right here at the base of his feet. And I'm going to center that so that that wire is sandwiched between that scrap. These are those 1/2 inch by 1 inch pieces I told you to cut. I'm going to sandwich the wire between that, the 3 inch wire. We'll do the same thing, but we'll have it up here. Get that into place. Put my wire in. My head is actually going to be way up here. This piece here will end up about right here. So I'm going to put this wire in place. And when I put this up here, I don't want his beard to stick to this wire. So I'm putting a piece of thin fire paper over that wire so it won't stick. And I'm going to align this part with that part and make sure that his beard, right here, you can see the tip of his beard is pointing towards that wire. Then I kind of know he's all lined up. He needs to dry for a few minutes, and then I'm going to pop him back in the kiln for a tack fuse to attach all the wires. Be back in a bit. My St. Pat's gnome is done. Since I fired him twice, his beard and mustache and all the details are a little softer than some of my other bobbleheads that I've done. I think I might tweak the schedule if I were to do it again, but I still think he's cute. And to make it so his head's not floating and turn him into a bobblehead, the first thing we're going to do is fold his head all the way back. And you do need to be careful when you're doing this because you don't want to break the glass here where the wire is sandwiched in there. Oh, like that. You don't want to do that. Still okay though. Kind of helps if you hold your finger there. All right, so his head is bent all the way back. And the next thing we're going to do is fold his body up. So again, I'm going to hold my finger here and kind of bend this up. So it looks like this. And then I'm going to squish that down. And my bobblehead is done. You can see he has a wiggly head. Next, I'm going to trim my wire to the length that I need. And I have these little round wood discs that I think I got from Hobby Lobby. I'm going to test it out, make sure that it fits in there well. I want his feet actually sitting on the wood. There we go. I'm using E6000 glue. Put some on the wire. And I'm going to put some on his feet here. Stick it in the wood. And once he's dry, he's done. I think he turned out pretty cute. If you liked this video, please share, like, and subscribe. You can also find lots of other bobbleheads as well as other fused glass projects on my YouTube channel, so check it out. Thanks a lot. Bye.